essentially don't roll at all. So if you were to put a person with a high arch in a shoe that's motion controlled to prevent pronation, you're now taking somebody who has no pronation and you're not allowing them to pronate. So you want to try to avoid that type of shoe. This is one of the few cases where there is absolutely a shoe you do not want to wear ever at all. And that would be the case right there. No motion control. You want to have something with a lot of cushion in it to help to take care of that pressure. The wear pattern typically on a flat foot is going to be on the inside part. So the inside part of the shoe, because of that rolling. So when you're doing a lot of the rolling, you're going to have a lot of wear. Instead of having it on the outside part of the heel, you're going to have it more on the inside part of the heel and more on the inside part of the arch. On the supinator, obviously you're going to have it all along the outside. So instead of just having it on the heel, you're going to have it on the heel, you're going to have it more up in here as well. Typically the inside part of the shoe is going to be almost look brand new as compared to the rest of the shoe. All right, so next, how to avoid the terrible twos. And we're not talking about children, but how to avoid the terrible twos. I mentioned earlier, this is really important for beginning runners because typically, you're very eager, very excited. You went out there, you ran a mile for the first time in over a year. You felt great afterwards. You weren't too sore. Everything was golden. So the next day you ran 3 miles. Same thing. You still feel good. And then 2 days later you can't get out of bed and your feet hurt and your shins are hurting and now you have knee pain and back pain. This is one of the examples of kind of the terrible twos. The too much, too often, too hard. Some of the usual injuries that you'll see with this, the quickest injuries, are going to be either an IT band syndrome, a shin splint, or even possibly like a stress fracture. IT band syndrome is basically when the lateral thigh, lateral knee, you kind of get a radiating pain down that part of your leg. That's usually probably one of the most common, that and shin splints, probably followed by plantar fasciitis. Should have put that one up there. That's a very common one as well. Those are going to be some of the type of injuries that you're going to see in somebody who didn't prepare themselves properly, didn't get into the right program, didn't get into the right setup. All right, so how do we fix that? How do we keep ourselves from going through the terrible twos? One of the most important rules of thumb is just making sure that you're in the right program. So whether you're training for a marathon, just started running, you're doing your first 5K, your first race ever. You want to make sure that you're gearing yourself up towards that goal. You're not just jumping in head first. That's the most important thing. For people who have been running for a while and really gauge their running based on mileage, we typically would say you don't want to do more than 10% increase a week. And if you're doing an increase, you'd want to basically run for a week at that increase before even debating about increasing it, or maybe even possibly try to increase your pace before increasing your distance. That way your body is going to better be able to, we talked about the steps, your body's ability to absorb all of that impact. The more steps, so the further you go, the more steps you're taking, the more forces your body has to absorb. So just like your muscles have to get used to doing certain reps and sets with exercises, your body has to get used to absorbing the shock and the forces coming up through when you run. The other important thing is just listening to your body. If it hurts, stop. There's no reason to push through it. The Army says no pain, no gain, but that is not typically applied in almost any other facet of life, right? So, if it is hurting, ice it. Take your NSAIDs, ibuprofen, Advil, Tylenol, rest. Don't go run the next day. Have a rest day the next day. Give your body a chance to heal. You're probably, if you're just starting a running program, you probably haven't used these muscles in a long time. So it's just like working out. It'd be no different than if you went to the gym and did 100 calf raises or something like that. You need to allow the body to, repair itself. The other really important thing with that is that, develop other programs of exercise. So if you're a diehard runner, you need to, especially if you're a diehard runner, you need to come up with some cross-training exercises or maybe other activities that you like to go do that allow you to work on endurance and work on your cardiovascular, but maybe you don't put as much of a toll on your body. So you're not having to have that constant impact of hitting the ground. So maybe it's going out and playing paddle tennis, or maybe it's going swimming, or maybe it's going for a bike ride, or I recently just found out that ping pong burns like 500 calories an hour, I was like, what? Who doesn't like to play ping pong? So, we play a lot of ping pong now at my house. And so, finding other things that you can do where you can still get the heart rate up, but now your body isn't taking that beating that you basically have been putting it through. The other thing to avoid the terrible twos, if you're actually out there and able to run, is not starting too fast. Typically, this happens a lot in races. Your first 5K, your first marathon, your first whatever it is. You're excited. The adrenaline's pumping. Everybody's going fast. You might have been in the wrong group of people who are running that 8-minute mile. You're more of a 12-minute mile kind of person. So you need to decrease your pace on the first mile. The talk test is one of those things that you can try. Basically, if you can't talk through your first mile, by the end of your first mile, if you're not able to talk, you went too fast. If you're already huffing and puffing by the end of your first mile, chances are you're not going to be able to go too much further. Your body's already kind of at a disadvantage and you're already climbing uphill. You're probably not going to hit that runner's high and you're going to be out of the game before you know it. So, really your first mile is kind of the key. You want to pace yourself very well. People typically ask me, okay, how slow should I go? I honestly say, you should drop it by almost like 2 minutes. So if you're trying to run an 8-minute mile pace, maybe for that first mile, do like a 10-minute mile pace. And then your next 2 miles, do like a 7-minute mile pace, to kind of try to make up for the difference. But after you've already had that first mile, it's basically like your warm-up. You've warmed up now. You've gotten the body going. Your body's going to better be able to handle those 2 7-minute paces rather than trying to make up for getting rid of all the lactic acid and things from going too fast too early. The other thing is if you're working out, I didn't put this up here, but cool downs. Cool downs are very important for, the next day and that week, your training. Cool downs, they showed it during the Olympics a lot with the swimmers. So they had the swimmers who were doing like 5 races a night, Ryan Lochte and the girl, what was her name? I don't remember. Something, the high school chick that did so awesome. She was doing the same thing as him. After their race, they got out of the pool, they walked back into another pool, and they kept swimming. And everybody was like, what are they doing? They're just wearing themselves out. But they weren't. They were going very slow, very methodical. It was not taxing to their body. They're such great athletes. That was nothing to them. That would be like us just walking, And what they were doing is they were keeping the blood flowing without developing a lot of lactic acid. So you're able to get the blood flow into the muscles and pull that lactic acid out, but you're not really developing more lactic acid. So therefore, you don't get as sore. Your muscles aren't going to take as much of a hit. So the cool down and the warm up are very important. All right, how to stay motivated. So one of the ways to stay motivated is not to bite off more than you can chew. So basically setting realistic goals. Putting yourself in a position to succeed. You hear that a lot. But if you don't succeed, you're not going to do it. I mean, who wants to do something you keep failing at? That's not typically anything I like to do. So if you are constantly failing at something, you're going to stop. You're not going to do it anymore. So you want to put yourself in a position where, you're like, okay, I'm going to run a 10-minute mile. That is a realistic goal. Once you reach that goal, you feel good about yourself. You're like, okay, I can do this. So now you do a 9-minute, 30-second mile, so on and so forth. The other thing is acknowledging progress. So, give yourself a pat on the back, Track your mileage increases. So, do a day-to-day of how far you ran. Do a week-to-week of your total mileage. Weigh yourself. See how much weight you've lost if that's your goal. You want to give yourself acknowledgement for doing well, doing what it is that you're trying to do. The other way to stay motivated is being social. So I kind of talked about that earlier, is running with friends, joining a running club, or signing up for a race. Nothing's going to motivate you more than spending money. If you just spent $80 to go do a race, you're probably going to train a little bit at least for that race. And you're going to do the race, you're going to love it, you might even get hooked on it. And then now you're signing up for more races, and you're just going to kind of get into a cycle with that. It's no different than people who buy that gym membership. They go for about a month, and then they don't go anymore. But they at least went for that month because they paid the money, right? So they felt guilty about it. So acknowledging progress. What are some of the ways we can do this? Technology now is awesome. You've got the Nike Plus, you've got the Garmin GPS apps, you've got all kinds of things that can help acknowledge your progress. One of my favorites right now is running from zombies. Has anybody heard of that? It's pretty awesome. So basically, you're running, you're listening to your iPod, it's playing music, you're doing great. And then all of a sudden, the app will jump in and it will say, okay, 4 zombies just turned around the corner, run as fast as you can to get away from the zombies. And it can tell how fast you're running, so it can tell if you've increased your pace or not. And once you get to the distance that it's established, it wants you to run, they'll say, okay, you got away. You can slow down. So you slow down, you walk a little bit. But so those are kind of some of the things that can allow you to basically, reach progress. The other thing I talked about was the calendar. So, marking your mileage, marking your weight, things like that. If you're doing weight, try to be consistent with when you measure yourself. There's nothing worse than measuring yourself every day. You do not want to do that. Your body weight is going to fluctuate a little bit, especially if you just started running or just started working out. Your water weight's going to change too often for that to really matter. So always weigh yourself. Typically, especially if it's a goal-oriented weighing, weigh yourself at the same time on the same day. So Sundays at 9 is when I weigh myself. That way you're consistent with the shape basically, or the position that your body's in. The other thing is keeping track of your records. The apps like the Nike Plus app does a great job of this. It keeps track of the farthest you've ran, the fastest you've ran 5Ks, 10Ks, etc. And they tell you why you're running. They'll be like, congratulations, you just ran. Lance Armstrong will come on there, even though he's having problems right now. Lance Armstrong will come on there and be like, congratulations, that's the farthest you've ever ran. Keep up the good work and things like that. Those are ways that keep you motivated and keep you wanting to go further. The other thing is the socialization. Okay, so running with friends keeps you accountable, right? So if you don't show up for that 7 o'clock run, you're going to catch hell for it. Signing up for races. So, start with a 5K if you've never done a race before. You'd be surprised how many people just walk 5Ks. I mean, it is not necessarily a race. Most people do not go to 5Ks to race. Usually you go to 5Ks because it's social. Your aunt who has never done anything in a year wants to do a race, so you go do it with her. Or, like for me, my mom wanted to start doing 5Ks. So we signed up and we did 5Ks, and we ran them. And it was a great way to get her involved in it, and it was a great way for me to just show her how easy it was to get involved in those type of things. She loved it. They have funner races like the Color Me Rad or the Mud Run. Those are ones that are typically not very competitive, but there are things that are going to make you enjoy running and enjoy doing that. The other thing is joining running groups. So I know like for the Donna, the Galloway Runners is huge. I mean, that's like a huge group that they have. Galloway is basically just I don't know what's the best way to put it, like a regiment basically of running. So they do a lot of walk runs. So they'll walk for 30 seconds, run for a minute, walk for 30 seconds, run for a minute, so on and so forth. They basically establish themselves in a group, and then you work up through the ranks in your group. Road runners, typically every city kind of has like a local club, like a local road running club. Schools have running clubs, things like that. Or just jump in with the cross country kids. They'll just leave you after like a mile, but you can jump in with them. But join a group. Typically running groups, even if they are experienced runners, people who have been running their whole lives, they love to have more people. They want more people. They like to brag about how many people they have in their running group. So they are going to work with you, and they're going to want to get you up to that, up to what it is that you want to do, up to your goal. So up to your goal, be realistic. Avoid those terrible twos. So, don't think that you've never ran before and you're going to go out and run a 10-minute mile. Be realistic. How fast could you probably walk a mile? 15 minutes, 16 minutes? All right, well, let's make a goal of doing a 13-minute mile. If you're somebody who's been running for a really long time, probably not going to run a 4-minute mile. Let's be realistic. So maybe get, running maybe like a 7-minute mile pace on a 5K or something like that is a more realistic goal for you to give yourself. Goals are also going to help decrease injury because you're not going to do the too much. Because as you start accomplishing goals, you're not going to feel the need to push yourself too hard because you're feeling good about what it is that you're doing. You're going to decrease that overtraining. The other thing is it improves your progress, because if you don't establish goals for yourself, you're going to get stuck in that rut. You're going to, it's Monday, I run 5 miles on Monday. It's Tuesday, I run 7 miles on Tuesdays. I walk 3 miles on Wednesdays. That's all you're ever going to do. Your body's going to get really good at doing that, and you probably will progress, but not as quickly as if you constantly challenge yourself to reach goals. So real quick, we're going to go through just kind of quick little running programs. I think this is it. If you are starting a running program for the first time, contact your physician if you have a health condition or if you are overweight, just to make sure that nothing is going to go wrong. There's nothing worse than getting all excited to go run for the first time and then, finding out you have a torn meniscus or something like that, and now, you can't do anything. So like I have a torn meniscus at the moment, so I haven't ran in a while, but I have developed other ways of reaching cardiovascular fitness. One of the other things is expect to have days of pain, So you're going to have days when you can't run. You're going to have days when, you know, you might need to go find that ping pong table or find that paddle tennis court. You're going to need to also make time for it. You know, you're not going to run if it's one of those things that you just do when you can. You know, because you're going to always find an excuse not to go do it, because running hurts most of the time. You know, physically it's draining. It puts a lot of stress on your joints. And so running is not something you're going to go do if you don't make time for it. One of the safest running programs to kind of start with is usually somewhere that begins with like an 8 to 12 week program. So basically, you know, you're going to run somewhere between 3 to 4 days a week for up to, you know, 3 months. And you're going to slowly progress yourself up with walking to jogging, jogging to running, and etc. One of the best ways to start for the beginning program is starting with, you know, 5 sets of 4-minute walks followed by 2-minute jogs. So you're going to get 30 minutes in by doing that. And this is, you know, what we would consider you being physically active. So you've reached your, you know, American College of, you know, Sports Medicine, being active for the day. And you have been able to put it to where, I mean, look, you're really only jogging, you know, 10 minutes out of the whole thing. But your heart rate's going to stay up. If you can't jog, so if it hurts to jog or if you just can't quite get that pace, then, you know, just walk faster than you do with the walking pace. That'll help kind of to build yourself up. And then you gradually work your way up. So maybe instead of doing 4-minute walks, now you're doing 3-minute walks and 3-minute jogs, and so on and so forth. And you do this until you can jog for all 30 minutes. Once you can jog for all 30 minutes, most running programs, so whether you join a running club, join a Galloway, or get one of the apps or anything like that, if you can jog for 30 minutes, you're golden. You're going to be good to go. There's going to be a program on there that you're going to be able to kind of start with. The other thing, and I kind of mentioned it earlier, is spending at least 1 week at, you know, whatever interval it is that you get to before you change. So let's say you change it to 3-minute walks and 3-minute jogs. Do that for a week before you change to, you know, 2-minute walks and 4-minute jogs. Give your body a chance to adapt to it. See how your body reacts to it. You know, we talked about the forces earlier. You know, just because you feel good after 2 days of doing it doesn't mean after 4 your body's going to be able to handle it as well. So you want to give your body a chance to kind of let you know how it tolerated it. For an advanced runner, typically, you know, you're going to go by your mileage. So, you know, increase your mileage 10% per week would be if you were trying to be aggressive and really kind of go after increasing your distance. You got same idea though. Still, you have to give your body a whole week at your current distance or pace to allow it to kind of adapt to it. One of the other things is, and this kind of goes a little bit with the cross training, is changing your running style. So, you know, don't always go out there and just run at your pace. You know, switch it up. Have days where maybe you do jog sprints. So where maybe you do like a 12-minute mile followed by a 7-minute mile, or a day where you do you know, all 10-minute miles, even though maybe you run at an 8-minute mile pace. So that way you're still getting in your mileage, but you know, you're teaching your body to be able to adapt to those different situations. The other thing is, you know, do a distance day. So do a day where you see how far you can get. Don't do that every day, but have a day where maybe you do that. Then do a day where you see what's the fastest pace you can do. Could you do a 7-minute mile for 10 miles? You know, that would be very impressive, and that puts you back into your acknowledging your progress situation where you would feel pretty good about that. The other thing is managing your aches and pains. So once again, listen to your body. You know, use ice, use things like that. If you have pain for more than a week, you know, contact somebody, whether it's a physical therapist, or if you have a cousin or a niece or a friend who's a physical therapist, or knows a doctor, or knows a guy who knows a guy. You know, get help for it, because typically, you know, your body aches and pains, just muscly aches and pains, should pretty much be gone after 7 days. So if it's lingering around longer than that, there may be something else going on. Quicker you get that taken care of, typically the quicker it kind of goes away. You know, we were talking about this earlier today in the clinic, actually, about plantar fasciitis. You know, people who get plantar fasciitis typically try to do the wait and see approach. You know, it's going to go away. I'm just going to walk around a little bit. I'm not really going to do as much. I'll be good to go. Yeah, it usually doesn't help. It lingers. It becomes chronic. Now it just became a 6-month problem. And not only that, but it'll probably come up again a year later. You know, so the quicker you can kind of manage it, the sooner you'll be able to get back to what it is you want to do. So listening to your body, kind of redundant. Have any pain, stop, walk, use ice. Stretching, that's what we're about to get into. The other thing is adjusting your running program. So let's say you started that running program that I mentioned before, the walking and jogging, and you can't even do that. Like, that's not working for you. You're not able to accomplish that. Then don't do it anymore. That's just an opinion of what I think is a good beginner program. Everybody's different. Just like shoes, shoes are made for all kinds of different types. There's different programs out there for all different types of people. So, the internet is a beautiful thing. You can find anything you want on the internet. Look up, and there's tons of forums on running and things like that. Look and see what are some other programs that other people are doing. What have other people had success with? Other people who are running at your same mileage, your same pace. Are they a beginner? Are they, somebody who's been doing it for a while? So stretching, a couple of the muscles, like 5 muscles that you really want to focus on are hamstrings, your IT band, gastrocs, basically your calf muscles, your hip flexors, and your adductors. So if you stretched all these muscles, you pretty much almost just got all your legs, and you're gonna allow them to stay kind of loose. What stretching also does is stretching also helps get some of the lactic acid out after you have been doing a run. Lactic acid is what is going to keep you from being able to run tomorrow. You may have done great today, but that's what's going to stop you tomorrow or stop you 2 days from now. So the bottom left one, IT band, is typically kind of hard to stretch. A lot of people will roll on foam rollers like we have over there in the corner, which is terribly painful on everyone. So don't let that discourage you. That hurts even a super healthy athlete. This is just one way to try to stretch the IT band. So we kind of call it the curtsy. So you kind of curtsy with the leg going back behind you. The guy on the ground, that's the hurdler stretch. Right next to it, that'd be a hamstring stretch. There's probably at least a dozen ways to stretch your hamstring. This is just probably the easiest way to do it outside after you just got done running. You don't need a band, you don't need a table, you don't need anything. You just sit on the ground and pull out the stretch like that. Up top, right above that, that'd be a gastroc stretch, for the calf. And then to get the soleus, which is basically a deep muscle right below your calf muscle, you would just bend the knee a little bit. So the leg he's actually stretching is that back leg. So that right leg is the one that you're stretching. So with that, you'd want to just keep that back leg straight, and you'd want to bend the front leg and try to keep that heel on the ground. You don't want the heel to come up. Going to the right of him, you've got a hip flexor stretch. Hip flexors typically are tight on most people. Most people are going to have tight hip flexors. I think one of the best ways to stretch it is to just kind of kneel on the ground and then lean forward. Another really good way to stretch it is with a stool. So kind of like what I'm sitting on is you would basically be in that same position, but instead of having the knee on the ground, you'd have the knee on a stool, and you just kind of scoot out a little bit with that leg staying on the stool. You just want to feel it in the front of your thigh to get that hip flexor. And then at the bottom right, that's the butterfly stretch to get your adductors. You just kind of sit almost like Indian style, try to push the knees down to the ground. Running, not for everyone, right? Homer Simpson, not a runner. So find an alternative. So we talked about ping pong, talked about paddle tennis. Maybe it's kayaking. The Intercoastal here is awesome to go kayaking in. Swimming in the summertime and things like that, or even just biking. Find a recreational sport, find something that you can go do that allows you to kind of get your heart rate up and things like that, but you're not going to put a lot of stress on your body. Running is very stressful to your body. It is really not meant for everybody, especially people who have been running for a long time. There is going to come a point when they probably should stop running before it becomes more detrimental to their body than it is beneficial to their body. You're going to have to get a total knee done at 40 years old rather than maybe later on in life, because you've literally from all those forces you've torn up the cartilage in the knee and things like that. So that's when listening to your body becomes very important. If your knees are hurting a lot every time you go run, you get shin splints and your knees hurt, running probably is not really the best option for you. You should probably try to seek another way to exercise or get that in. Well, thank you guys for coming. Appreciate it. If anybody has any questions or anything later on, give us a call or an email. I'll drop my